Shut up and sit down.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another installment of MBA Career Discussions. I'm Fergus Kennedy, and I work with the INSEAD Career Development Centre in Singapore. Joining me today is Shruti Tandon, Head of Third-Party Manufacturing APAC at Henkel in Singapore, and part of the INSEAD class of 19J, and Mudita Suri, Sales and Commercial Strategy Manager at Vestas, also in Singapore, and part of the INSEAD class of 19D. So ladies, it's a pleasure to welcome you back, the two networking queens of 2019. How has it been since then?
I'll go first.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's 1 year has passed. I just had my 1 year class reunion over the weekend. And you can see just how much life has changed in
lockdown,
1 year.
Lockdown times?
Yeah, lockdown times, but also what you thought what you thought life would be like and what it's actually like. Yeah.
No, same. First of all, Fergus, thanks for having us here. This should be fun. And exactly what Shruti said, right? In one way, I feel like we almost dodged a bullet graduating when we did. These are certainly insane times. But in other ways, it's such a stark difference from the INSEAD year with no travel and work from home. And yeah, certainly crazy times, but
sure.
Still lots to be grateful for, I guess.
For sure. So guys, this podcast or this recording will be shown to the new class coming in, the 21J class, and hopefully many other people that are just interested to learn a little bit more about the energy and industrial space, and maybe how you guys transitioned from your careers, your past careers, into these new industries and geographies. So both of you are double career changers. Mudita, you changed geography and function. Yes. And Shruti, you changed function and industry.
Yep.
So who wants to go first? Just a brief intro into what you had done before INSEAD.
Mudita, you want to go first?
Sure. Okay. So yeah, as Fergus, you rightly mentioned, so I changed geography and I changed function, but I maintain my industry, which is energy industry. That's the only industry I've ever been in. And before INSEAD, I'm an electrical engineer. So I was working in the US for the state electricity grid operators. So it was fairly technical role. Leading sort of grid analysis, renewable integration, renewable policy implementation, but all coming from the engineering side of the grid and infrastructure. So this is quite the change, and we'll talk more about that, I guess, in this postcard. But yeah, that was me before INSEAD.
Okay.
All right, and before INSEAD, I also was in a very technical space. I was a process engineer working at a refinery. So if you've ever thought what a typical engineer looks like, that was my work uniform, with the helmet, the fire-resistant suit, and the boots. So that's how I used to go into work before my MBA. So I've changed from the oil and gas industry into the chemicals industry. I still have quite a lot of passion for working in a technical industry, and that's why I decided to stay on in the chemical industry. However, I also had an interest not to be doing the hardcore engineering work, the simulations, or the technical design. My interest was more in how I can implement projects and drive business in a technical industry.
Right. So Shruti, you're Singaporean, right? So I guess you
yes. Almost. I've been here for 10 years. I'm a Singapore PR.
You are. I'm not remembering correctly, but I knew it was something like that. So you kind of had your own, you had a bit of a network already developed within Singapore. But Mudita, do you want maybe to talk about a little bit about how you coming from a completely different continent and the sort of steps that you took when you first landed in Singapore, and how to kind of understand a little bit about the local landscape and the sectors and industries.
Sure. So no, as Shruti said, I think we have very, very similar story. I also wanted to move more to the commercial and financial side of the energy industry. and sort of not be involved in the technical space, but I wasn't ready to give it up completely. So I still wanted a role that had some flavor of the technical point of view. So, and the other thing to add on that, I moved here with my husband and we left the US wanting to make Singapore home. So for me, it was very important sort of going all in sort of in a poker game when I came to INSEAD to find a new job and a new career in Singapore that I'm passionate about. So few things that I'll point out that I thought worked well for me. One is, I think, networking. There is no substitute for that. The more people you meet, the coffee chats you have, or even conferences that you attend, you understand what is the conversation happening in the region. Because as you said, Fergus, it's so different between, and I was in California, even in the US, which is sort of this front flag bearer of the renewable growth in the US. So from there to Asia, the more people I met, I would always ask them, what in your job do you feel is the growth potential or the challenge for your company in Asia, right? And then going to different conferences or even different networking groups. Like I became a member of the Women in Energy Asia. Yep. So you go to these events and you understand, okay, what are people talking about? What do they see as the main hot topic for the next few years? I think that for me was very valuable, understanding, and especially because Singapore in itself is really tiny, right? So you don't really have big solar utility scale plants or wind farms in Singapore, but it tends to be regional headquarters for a lot of important firms. So then understanding who those players are in that conversation through networking, I think helped a lot. And then again, reading, getting involved in like reading about the solar rush in Vietnam, which was happening back then, what was fueling it. So just also the policy landscape of Asia. Of course, I am Indian, so connecting with a lot of people back home who work in this space in India, getting some insights from them. So I think, yeah, a combination of a lot of tiny things, but networking, I would say, was the biggest sort of tool to like an easy lay of the land, because every time you do a second coffee chat, the first coffee chat has equipped you better to hold conversations and ask smarter questions.
Sure. You didn't have any that persuaded you against going for the next coffee chat, I hope.
No, I don't think so.
So Shruti, you got your offer with Henkel through, first of all, doing a study project with them. Isn't that correct, in the Middle East?
That is correct. So I had taken my P3 in Abu Dhabi, and while I was there, I'd done my project with Henkel.
Right. And then you also continued through the regular on-campus recruiting, and you had a number of offers, I remember. Too many offers, I remember.
Yes, we all do.
So what would you say is the key to success during on-campus recruiting?
I think the way our on-campus recruiting, the modules are structured is a good way to go through it. So when I joined INSEAD, I wasn't sure what I would want to do. It was clear that I didn't want to be an engineer, but I wasn't sure what industry, what geography, or what function I wanted to do it. And within the space of the first 2 periods, it's really important to narrow down your focus. And I think when you get a clear focus, that really helps you to have effective applications through the rest of the period. So by the end of P2, there were certain things which I was clear I was not going to apply for. So regardless of the FOMO, regardless of how many people are going to those recruiting events, I just wouldn't do it because I know myself. So I think the first step is really to understand yourself and what you want, because this will affect how you manage your energy in the P3, P4, P5, because those are really tiring and stressful, and you will feel the stress from others coming and affecting your energy.
Yeah.
I think the second piece is like really getting a strong pitch for yourself. What is it that you bring to the table? What is your brand? Have that really clearly nailed out and make sure it's authentic. It's very tempting to go and kind of fit yourself to what someone else is looking for, but the moment you get into an interview and you try to be someone apart from yourself, that can really fall apart. So make sure you have a strong pitch, a strong brand, but make it authentic.
Right. And would you say that you made any mistakes along the way, something maybe that the students might avoid?
I think there are a couple of things which I I think I wasted my time on earlier. So one piece was around networking. So I've lived in Singapore for a long time, and the way most people here are, you don't talk to strangers, you don't disturb people, just mind your own business. The real
Hear that,
opposite of networking.
Mudita?
And being
I
an
was the
introvert, I
annoying
was
person,
like,
yeah.
yeah. So like being an introvert, that's a really easy trap to fall into, because you feel like you are disturbing others when you go networking. And I had that mindset for probably a couple of months in my MBA. But honestly, it's the best time where you can approach someone. People are interested to talk to you, and they're actually happy you're reaching out to them. And I wish I had absorbed that mindset earlier to make the most of my MBA. Once you start working, people tend to think you have an agenda for approaching them. So I think that is something which I wasted a little bit of my time in the MBA on.
Right.
Another thing is think about how you want to balance your time. I think 80% of the time you should spend on getting the job you really want, and maybe 20% of your time on your backup plan. Don't spend more time on your backup plan than what is your real desire, because then, you know, you came here because you wanted to make a change in your life and your career.
Sure.
Go ahead with that change.
Okay. Mudita, same question to you. What mistakes, if any?
I think Shruti really nailed it in the head when she used the term FOMO. I think with INSEAD, because it's such a short duration program and there is so much happening around you, it is so crucial to have a focus. And when I say focus, I don't necessarily mean that day one you have to know exactly what you want, but it still has to be a conscious, disciplined process to approaching things. I think in my case, when I came into INSEAD, and I think Fergus, I met you maybe in week 1, I knew I wanted to be in energy. That for me was non-negotiable.
Yeah.
But what in energy, what would that look like if it's not engineering or something? I was also figuring out, as Shruti also said, what is my brand outside of being an engineer?
Yep.
And I think one of the mistakes I would say during T1 and T2 was exactly this FOMO. Sometimes I found myself sitting in certain recruitment events or doing certain preparations, which I would then have to like, and I did that only out of FOMO and peer pressure. And I would have to take a few steps back and be like, is this really the best use of my time? Am I only doing this because everyone is doing this and I feel it's not enough what I'm doing, which is different. And I think fighting that feeling, especially in P1, P2, you're just getting a sense of yourself, the program, your classmates. I think that was a mistake I did, to then finally take a step back. And what Shruti said, like finally you put some sort of hard rules for your desk. Okay, I'm not applying for these industries or these roles. And then your time sort of opens up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be the one mistake. I think the second thing, I don't think that was a mistake I did, but I have seen that I would throw it in there. I think students don't use their career coaches and CDC more tactfully or even enough, right? Because I think there is so much value out there, because especially for someone like me who's new to a country, having or using my time with you, Fergus, who's been here for some time, and you already right off the bat know, like, okay, these are the companies that are strong. These are the people that we might know there. They're alumni. So I think people don't do that enough. Even with my career coach, I felt she was so helpful in not only like preparing for these networking meetings to finally negotiating my job package. And I think that's I've at least talking to a lot of my classmates, I feel people don't pay a lot of attention to those resources that are really good.
Right. So one of the things that I guess I sometimes struggle with in my job is that a lot of the companies that I work for are not exactly household names like the Googles or Amazons or Microsofts that regularly come to campus. And Shruti, Henkel would kind of fall into that category as well, as not such a well-known brand as some of the other offers that you had on the table. What was it about Henkel that made them stand out to you?
I think the first piece was around what I was looking for and what the job had to offer. So what I was looking for is I wanted a managerial role. That means either managing people or something that really works more with people than with technical aspects or analytical numbers. The second piece was about what is it that I can learn from the role. So the role of third-party manufacturing, it's more on the operation side. I had worked in manufacturing previously. However, this role was supplier facing, so I had some external view, and that was something I wanted to learn. It also was a regional role, so it's an Asia Pacific based role, and it would give me exposure to different countries. I've been in Singapore for the early part of my career, and I had no exposure to the bigger regional market. With my current role, I have a lot of exposure, especially to North Asia, China, Japan, and Korea, and I can see how that is developing me right now. And yes, it's also a people management role, and I think that's the most rewarding part of my work, and I'm really glad I took it.
Great. And Mudita, it seems that every time I met you, you had met with another 10 or 20 renewable energy companies in Singapore. You seem to you seem to have met the entire industry in your time here. So what was it about Vestas that made you move that way?
I think those numbers might be slightly exaggerated, but no, but I think, and again, I think Shruti said it very right. So I had to ask myself, where is it that I see myself? And I think that question is not only where I saw myself in the next 2 years, but maybe in the next 5 or even more. What was that long-term vision? So in my mind, I always knew, okay, I have the engineering knowledge. No one can sort of take that away from me. I need to understand the commercial financial side and the policy space, because when I was working as an engineer in California, I realized there is so much more than just the technical aspect that fuels and drives the energy industry. Why certain states or countries have more projects than some other places. And I really wanted to understand that policy commercial dynamics. So when I was meeting and networking, and I met some really, really nice, passionate people who spoke with a lot of energy about what they do, the kind of impact they had. And I always sort of, this might sound silly, but I maintain, like, how we do our URLs at INSEAD, the unique recruiter list. I maintain like a evaluation list. So I had these 10 criterias that are super important to me. Of course, geography was one. It was sort of, okay, I want to be in Singapore as much as possible, unless it came to a point where I didn't really find anything here. The brand value of, but when I say brand value, I don't mean like an Amazon or an Apple, but in the industry, what is the role that player plays? Is it a market leader? Is it known as the innovator? Is it, where are they originally based from? The people I was meeting, how do they speak about the culture of the place? And how do they sort of articulate what they define as growth for their company in the region? So I had like these few matrices. So every time I come back from a coffee chat, I would try and evaluate and overall the vibe you get. Now, of course, one person isn't representative of the whole company, but more often than not, you know if that's a fit. And I think with Vestas, that was something that stood out for me right off the bat, because the person I reached out to, who's actually now my manager, I think it was also like a little component of luck, because she was just grow a really, really interesting team. And as Shruti said, it's an Asia Pacific wide team. So you get a little bit of flavor from all the way to India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, to Korea, Japan, when it comes to wind. And I think when I met her, and she had already worked in 3 different geographies in Vestas. And she spoke with so much passion about the vision of the company, the vision of the team, and why she thinks her job is important in the world, like the big picture impact. And I think that really, really stood out to me, the way the team and the growth in the region was described for Vestas sounded really exciting. I had some experience again on technical side with solar, because when I was working in California, we had a lot of solar in our interconnection queue. And so wind was also exciting from that aspect, to sort of learn of this whole a new component of supply chain. So I think all of those put together, Vestas checked like a lot of boxes for me. And then I did my summer internship there. And I think that experience was the final big check, my 2 months there. I loved the people, the project, the culture, the spirit. And so, yeah, I think that would, it
And
was a
neither,
long process, but yeah, finally it was a clear choice.
and neither of you are on commission for selling your company so well, right?
No. I think one point which I would like to add, and Woody alluded to it, in this, I mean, when you go for a corporate job, the companies are not necessarily looking out for MBAs. So I think it's really important to find an employer who understands the value you bring to the table and what they can, how they will develop you with the skills that you have. And it's really important to also find a good line manager, because you're not on a project-based role. This is a corporate role, and you will be working with this person. This person can affect your happiness, your development in your career. So like, it's really important that you get a good sense of who your manager will be, and that you can see things eye to eye with them, and also get a sense on how he's like, not just with your interactions, but also like check in with other peers or other people in the company.
Right.
They're quite open. Like if you ask them, can I speak to a few of my colleagues or a few of the people who work in the office, companies tend to be open to you to speak to them. If they are not, that's usually a bad sign.
All right. Okay. So I'm just conscious of our time. I know we set aside 30 minutes or 25 minutes thereabouts. Let's finish up with your 3 tips for MBA students in this COVID affected year. What would they be? It can be each or combined.
You want to take the first one, Shruti?
I think network with sincerity. Network because you want to learn about the company, and be sincere that you're approaching it in a learning way. Don't go there and with the intent to flatter them, because it will come across. A lot of companies have hiring freezes or restrictions on hiring, so you do need to make a sincere approach to that company. Have a good reason why you are interested in them and why you're interested in that role.
Okay.
Moody, you can go for the second one.
Yes, you stole one of my points anyway. Now, just to add on to what Shruti said, this point is so critical, because I experienced that firsthand. If you write to people with a clear agenda that you are asking them out to coffee or lunch because A, you need a job, or B, you want to ask about a specific job opening, people, I mean, everyone is really busy. It's a lot going on in everyone's life. But I found personally, I had way more success when I was reaching out to people just with the intention of knowing and learning, and also bringing some of my experience to the table. That happy to exchange notes about how this A, B, and C works in China versus California, how these two worlds approach renewable differently. And so bring that. So I think, Shruti, that's a super, really important point. I think the second one I would ask, which I add, is we briefly touched on that already. I think it's so important to know what differentiates you. It is so important to have that value pitch. And I know this is something that sounds like out of a strategy jargon, but it is really important. The value communication of who you are and why you are different. And even if, like in my case or Shruti's case, we were changing functions or we were changing industries, what transferable skills make us a great fit for the company or the industry we are aiming for. So I think it's great. It's really, really important to have that sort of MVP. What is your MVP in the job market? And that the answer has to be better than, because yeah, of course, everyone in INSEAD applies to these 5 companies. That's not a good enough MVP. Shruti, I pass on to you for the next one.
I remember that was one of the things that I remember from you, Mudita, was that you used to work on your pitch like every couple of weeks with your career coach. It seemed to be a regular thing. So it was every time you met a company, you nailed it each time. And it's just that.
I don't know if I nailed it, but I did practice it, because there are a lot of really, really smart people out there, not just at INSEAD, but generally, who are out there in the job market. Some of them are even more relevant to the exact job or the position you're applying to, but it's how you position or market yourself, or so that's, I think that's super important. As Shruti said, it has to be genuine and it has to be sincere.
Okay, Shruti, to close us out.
No, I think it's also really important to stay connected with others. Even if you're focused on recruiting, don't forget that job is just a small part of your life. It's important to stay connected with people who know you well, your family and friends. They will remind you about what you are, what your brand is, and they will keep you on track for that. And also, I mean, you do need your support when you're going through this difficult period of interviewing, sometimes getting rejected, sometimes getting into the next round and nervous about it. So just really important, stay connected.
Well, this has been an eye-opening experience as always. Shruti and Mudita, it's been amazing to chat with you again. Looking forward to catching up for coffee, tea, or beer. Once all of this is, once all these lockdowns are relaxed. And big thanks again. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Fergus. Great to be
Thank
with
you,
you again.
Fergus. Thanks, Shruti. Nice to see you.